Hi, my name is Shalondra Bhattacharya. I'm the co-founder, CEO, and cloud evangelist at Indicus Technologies. What we do at Indicus is help enterprises and telcos demystify cloud and use it in the best ways possible in their business and scale their revenue. At the end of my professional career, I started seeing a huge gap in the market about the whole understanding about cloud computing. So this was 2012-13 when I saw a lot of people looking at this space but not really understanding what to do with it. So that's when I realized the huge value I can add for my customers and come out and started a company with my co-founder Shiv. And we got together and built a very interesting story for our customers where they don't have to bother about anything to do with cloud or anything to do with what goes into it. We come in and stitch the whole solution for them and enable them to build their business on top of that. Our USPs are understanding of the domain. While we are a startup, we are a small team. It's a very experienced team, and the team has worked in this domain for a long period of time and really knows what goes into building a cloud. A challenge which we faced in the initial time, as happens with a lot of startups, is large companies don't take us very seriously, and most of our customers are essentially large companies. So you had instances where customers have made us do demos and go and set up, proof of concepts for them, and engaged us for a very long time. But when it actually came to giving us an order, they just backed out, just saying that you're a too small a company. But I think those are days of the past. We now work with pretty large companies, telcos like Airtel and Sri Lanka Telecom, companies like IPGO and all. So I think now we are getting there and we are getting engaged with large brands also. To all budding entrepreneurs, I would say think 100 times before you start up anything. Don't just jump into it because there's a buzz for startups going out. Think what you want to do. Be sure that it's your passion that you're chasing. And once you're into it, give it everything you have, 110%. Don't do anything with a half-hearted approach because that will not get you anywhere. I think GlobalLink offers a great platform for SMEs to network and interact with each other. They are spread all over the country from the metros to the smallest of cities, and it's a great virtual platform where they can meet and interact and talk about business, talk about their challenges as an entrepreneur, what they can do for each other. It essentially creates a very interesting social platform and great alternative to LinkedIn and Facebook where people can purely talk about business and entrepreneurship and nothing else.
Good morning, all. Welcome to the webinar. Welcome to the conference. We would like to check if you are keeping safe and would like to welcome you, all the participants, to this conference today. We thank you for your time in advance, and we hope you have an excellent session today. I will be doing some introductions. My name is Kabiru Mohammed Aliu. I'm the founder for Transform Africa. I'm also going to be talking about introducing my co-host. His name is Engineer Olabode Olaleka. Together, we would facilitate the conference today. Again, thank you for your time. And the topic today is data localization, building a cloud platform and data center in Nigeria and Africa. We have a host of panelists to discuss this topic today, and we sincerely hope that you enjoy your time with us. Again, my name is Kabiru Muhammad Aliu, and with me co-hosting this event is Engineer Olabode Olaleka. Now, I'll make some few introductions. I would like to introduce NIEEE, Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. NIEEE Lagos chapter exists to serve members that share common interests in the field of electrical and electronic engineer. The NIEEE Lagos chapter has a vision, right, to be the leading and most credible professional institution of first choice, with a mission to promote professional competence and excellence among members through innovation contribution, development of sustainable solutions to challenge engineering problems by deploying efficient technologies and systems to the benefit of mankind. Wow, that is really, really a fantastic mission that NIEEE and NIEEE Lagos chapter has. Now, allow me to introduce Transform Africa. Transform Africa was founded on the principle of giving back to Africa. The purpose is to build capacity by specially training the people of Africa, especially young people, and mentor them to be creators and leaders that will form sustainable businesses and produce solutions that are amazing, that will improve processes and income across various industries. And our collaboration with NIEEE Lagos chapter speaks to this vision. Now, thank you very much again for joining, and I will continue to make some introductions of our partners. Right today, we have special partnership with the Learning Space. The Learning Space is a world-class African-based and inspired learning space for creatives and innovators in ICT space, offering ICT training, certifications, and related services. An important aspect of the space is that it is inspired by nature. The Learning Space vision is to position and grow African industries and economy through technology. Now, thank you for the Learning Space for supporting this webinar, this conference. Now, allow me to introduce Indicas. Indicas Technology is a fast-growing cloud solution company that works with service providers such as telcos, ISPs, and data center providers globally and enable them to build a profitable in-country cloud business. Indicas Technology, in partnership with Virtual Formatics, right, is able to deliver this conference to you. Now, Indicas Technology, in partnership with Virtual Formatics, is positioned to deliver your private and public cloud solution at cutting-edge, affordable price. Now, allow me to introduce Cisco Systems. Cisco Systems is an American multinational technology conglomerate headquarters in California, in the center of Silicon Valley. Cisco develops, manufacture, and sell networking hardware, software, telecommunication equipment, and other high technology services and products. Now, thank you for Cisco for the support. Now, allow me to introduce Virtual Formatics. Now, Virtual Formatics is a born in the cloud ICT engineering firm that is also positioned to offer up-to-the-minute complete IT solutions and system integration for small, medium, and large enterprises. Now, again, if you are just joining us, welcome. We sincerely welcome you and thank you in advance for your time. We hope that you take something out of this conference. We have amazing presenters that we will be introducing shortly. We have amazing panelists that we're also going to be introducing shortly. But let me welcome you again to the topic. My name again is Kabiru Mohammed Aliu, and with me co-hosting this conference is Engineer Olabode Olaleka. Now, talking about the topic, data localization. Data localization, building a cloud platform and data center in Nigeria and Africa, right? As a private company, you want to be able to get your solutions and services at a faster pace than your competitors, right? You also want to be able to reduce your costs, consolidate your various ICT resources across multiple departments, spanning across multiple states and countries. You are also concerned about various skills and energy you take to manage this infrastructure. You are also concerned about the billing various departments for the cost of ICT to determine their true profitability, right? You are concerned about a number of things. If you are, then a case for private cloud or move to public cloud is established, right? Our topic today talks about data localization, building a cloud platform and a data center in Nigeria and Africa. You can have the best of both worlds by addressing all your concern and keeping your data local in Nigeria and Africa. There are several models to consider. It's very important to note this point, data localization. It is important because you want to promote data consumption in Africa. You want to promote data consumption in Nigeria. You want to create more opportunities in Nigeria as well for people to develop into other skills such as DevSecOps, data scientists, and just to mention a few, right? So there are several models for you to consider while you go through these presentations, right? Firstly, you build your cloud data, you build your cloud data center and then build your local cloud platform. So that's the first scenario, right? Where you would build your own data center, you would build your own cloud platform. The next scenario is you would co-locate on an existing data center, world-class data center in Nigeria and Africa, and then you build a cloud platform that sits inside that data center that is managed by someone else, right? According to Uptime Institute standards, right? All these options are available through the collaboration between Indicas, Virtual Formatics, and the learning space. The partnerships ensure that we can take the end-to-end management of the process for you while you focus on your innovation or getting your product to market. Please stay tuned as we continue to bring you, the proceedings of this conference. Again, my name is Kabiru Mohammed Aliu, and my co-host today is Engineer Olabode Olaleka. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabiru Aliu, founder, Transform Africa. And permit me now to welcome each one again to this wonderful webinar, Data Localization, Building a Cloud Platform and Data Center in Nigeria and Africa. I am a co-host with Mr. Kabiru Aliu, and I am Engineer Olalekan Olabode, MNSE, MNI the Deputy Chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer, Lagos chapter. There is a saying that great things happen when great minds come together. And that is exactly what we are seeing today. This webinar is powered together with Transform Africa and the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer, Lagos chapter. We have earlier been told the mission of NIEEE Lagos chapter is to promote professional competence, and excellence among members through innovative contributions and development of sustainable solutions to challenging engineering problems by deploying efficient technologies and systems for the benefit of mankind. We believe to be the leading and most credible professional institution of first choice. It is worthy to mention that we have our members all over Nigeria, and we have a membership strength spanning over 15,000 members. And that is why we could see the romance with Transform Africa. Because basically, we want to look at the importance of data localization in Nigeria and across Africa as the continent increased the development of locally built data center and cloud platform. So we can see the reason why this webinar is so important to all of us. Once again, I do want to welcome us to this wonderful webinar that will open us to more detailed information concerning data localization in Nigeria and beyond Nigeria. We have expert panelists who will be looking at this topic distinctively and be able to do more justice to it. Permit me at this time to welcome one of our panelists, the founder and CEO of Indicas Technologies, Mr. Sunando Bhattacharya. Mr. Sunando is a cloud and data center veteran with over 22 years of industry experience. He founded Indicas in 2013, working with service providers and governments globally to deliver Earth clouds in emerging markets and enable in-country data localization. Mr. Sunando, you are welcome. Also, the pleasure is mine as well to welcome another panelist who is a systems engineer with Cisco System Engineer Oguntula Olugborahan. Oguntula is a systems engineer at Cisco System. He has over 6 years of ICT experience with a BSc in electrical and electronic engineering. Oguntula is a Cisco certified into network expert in data center. He brings a wealth of experience on the table for us to learn from him. The pleasure again is mine to introduce to us the technical project director of Virtual Formatics, in person of Oyedamola Olaleko. Oyedamola is the technical project director of Virtual Formatics. She has a deep passion for security with numerous professional certifications covering routing and switching, virtualization, data center facility management, Palo Alto, just to mention a few. And also, I have the distinguished honor to introduce to us the General Manager, Facility and Operations at Database Systems Limited, in person of Engineer Hafiz Ajibade, FNI EEE, MNSC. Engineer Ajibade is a registered engineer with the current a fellow with the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, a fellow African Association of Entrepreneurs with over 20 years of professional experience in the field of electronics, information technology, power protection, and renewable energy. Over 20 years experience in ICT, data center infrastructure, operations, and management. And also it is worthy to mention that Engineer Hafiz Ajibade FNR EEE obtained certifications in information technology, IT, and energy efficiency. He is known as an IT expert because of his certification with Microsoft Certified Technology Specialist. Engineer Hafiz Ajibade, you are highly welcome. And the last on our panelist today, to drive home the point of what we're discussing, is my own chairman, is my own vice chairman of ICT of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, in person of Engineer Oluseyi Basharu, MNSE, MNI EEE. Engineer Oluseyi Basharu is an acting head of IT with over 16 years of experience in IT operations and strategy, delivering values to the business. He received his MSc in Electronic and Computer Engineering from Lagos State University, where he specialized in microwave engineering. Engineer Oluseyi has authored and co-authored technical articles including statistical data performance modeling and prediction of indoor wireless LAN strength. The pleasure is mine once again to now call on my humble Vice Chairman ICT, Engineer Oluseyi Basharu, for his opening remarks. Engineer Basharu, welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you, my Deputy Chairman. Good morning, all. Once again, I hope we are keeping safe. I want to thank all of us for, taking time out of our tight schedules to be here today. We know it's not been easy to, have a work full load of a week and also still gather to be here. So you are very welcome. First of all, I want to thank Transform Africa founder, Mr. Kabir Aliyu, for allowing this, and also the chairman of Lagos chapter of NI EEE for allowing this kind of e-symposium to come together. You've worked so hard to make this happen, and I want to thank you. Thank you greatly, and also for others that are also in the supporting team. Thank you. I also want to welcome the participants. I know definitely we have our seniors in the professional field and also in other walks of life. You are very, very welcome today. Yeah, today we are discussing a very important topic, data localization, or what we can also refer to as data residency. As we all know, the new important area of value now is data, or what we can call knowledge. Of course, structured application of data will definitely provide knowledge. Now, data localization is also important and very, very important because of the sovereignty and other issues that are around it. Each country, want to protect its own data. You want to ensure that, okay, his own data is within his locality, and is not, exposed to quite a lot of risk around the data breaches and all that. Now, in Nigeria, interestingly, we have regulatory bodies that are also key drivers to data localization in Nigeria. And of course, we have CBN, who is actually directing the banks and all that, and those that provide services that require personal information of individuals to localize their services. We also have the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, which is mandatory service providers and even organizations, that are working on data of the citizen of this country to ensure that those data are actually, hosted locally, processed, and stored locally. And so these are important drivers that we also need to have at the back of our mind, to know why we are doing this and why this is important. So today we have important personality. I won't go into introducing them again because my deputy chairman and Mr. Kabiru have been able to do justice to that. But I want all of us to sit back and hear the perspective, because if we want to localize data in this country, we definitely need infrastructure. We definitely need to also look at how do we provide this infrastructure at at a layer where it will not be a burden, to the organizations, that we have locally. I'm sure we are all very much aware of our, challenges in this country around power systems, around, connectivities and all that. So there's need for us to look at how we can really add values, to providing this service to enterprise organization in Nigeria. And so that is what the panelists are coming out to discuss here today. We have Engineer Jibade that will focus on the physical, and operational matters around, data center, and of course capacity building. How we need to certify, what we need to do to ensure that our data is well protected. We also have Indicals who also talk about cloud environment, and of course this is like scaling. Organizations don't need to have physical infrastructure in place. You can actually outsource some of these to a cloud service provider or even a cloud consultant who will help you to come up with a particular strategy and manage the process end to end for you. Yeah, we also have Cisco, of course, the active devices, OEM. I'm sure a lot of us know Cisco, and of course, they are quite important in this discussion. And of course, we have virtual formatic also being represented and all that. So I want to encourage all of us. This is going to be a very, very, important and, collaborative discourse. It's not going to be one-sided. We are going to be, listening to different perspectives. And of course, we also welcome your contributions, your questions, so that we can all learn together, so that as we are all in this together. Data localization is talking about localizing our data in the country, and this data has to do with all of us. So without much ado, I want to once again thank you for taking time to attend today's webinar, and I promise you it's going to be a blast. Thank you. You're very much welcome.
Thank you very much, Engineer Basharon, for that powerful opening remarks. We really appreciate your time. Please participate, audience, please participate in a short 30 seconds poll. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabiru Aliu, and all members, all participants, for going through that small exercise. However, in the course of the pool, I have some highly revered engineers that are joining us on this webinar. And to lead for recognition, I have that honor to recognize and welcome an erudite engineer, visionary, in person of Engineer Adekunle Makinde, FNSE, FNIEEE, a past national chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Sir, you're welcome. The pleasure also is mine to recognize Engineer Abiodun, who is the Vice Chairman, also of control in NIEEE Lagos chapter. With us also is Engineer Omar Imobe, who also is an Executive Technical Secretary of NIEEE Lagos chapter. Joining us also on this webinar today is Engineer Oyetayo Adegboyega, who also is the Vice Chairman Power with the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer Lagos chapter. And I could also see Engineer Taiwo Okaidia also is joining us together. It's time for us now to sit back to listen to the first panelist in person of Engineer Afiz Ajibade, FNIEEE, for him to take us through passive data center devices. You are welcome, sir. Engineer Afiz Ajibade. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing me on board to start the race of the presentation. This morning, we shall be starting with looking at the data center infrastructure and having a good feel around the physical entities that contain the physical infrastructure called the data center. For the data center, it is very important to start with mind-blowing facts concerning the data center. And it's important to look at mind-blowing facts concerning the data center. And this is about 6 mind-blowing facts for the data center. And one very important one is that by 2020, data centers will use 1/5 of the world's electricity. That is mind-blowing. 1/5 of the world's electricity. And for those of us in Nigeria, it means it's going to be challenging. And as more data centers come up, as more co-location sites come on, we are going to be having demand for power and at the same time cooling. So this is going to be a lot challenging for those of us who are running data centers. And that tells us the milestone we need to cover for data centers. What is a data center? Data centers are physical or virtual infrastructure housing computer, server, networking, and systems and other components, storing, processing, and serving large amounts of mission-critical data to clients. And that is the essence of the data center. It is there to serve large amounts of mission-critical data. And that's why it is very easy for us to do one branch banking. You can go to any branch, you can make your bank, you can do your transact your banking application, your banking with ease, all because all branches are referenced to one center, which is the data center. And that's why the information is stored and kept, and one is able to have access to it from the branches. It's also important to note that in the data center, it consists of different elements. We have the site location, the power infrastructure, the cooling infrastructure, the civil structure, the building, the telecommunications infrastructure, the fire suppression, monitoring, security, and other things, including efficiency and operations. It's very important to know that each element is as important as the other. So we cannot say that yes, we have power is important, cooling is important, well, security may not be important. No, it is not. Security is equally important because it is going to protect the infrastructure that you already have. So each element should be treated as important as the other, and that importance now gives the overall efficiency of the data center at the end of the day. So, and that's why in designing data centers, all these elements must be critically taken care of. Also, in building or owning data centers, there are different options. You can build and operate, which we have been having for quite some time locally in Nigeria. Here, quite a number of organizations have been building and owning ownership of their data centers. We can have co-location services, which are springing up rapidly across the country. We have so many companies coming up with co-location services where you can deploy your equipment and you can run your data center. So you don't have the overheads, you don't have to worry about your power, your cooling, and some telecommunication infrastructure. Everything is available at the co-location center. You can also have your cloud services where you don't even have to worry about deploying any hardware. All you need to do is upload your data or your service and you pay. And you can have a hybrid of any of the three above, which gives you the flexibility of owning certain sensitive data that you can have quick access to, and the rest that can be on the cloud services. So whichever option, all are feasible, and it's up to the owner to determine what he wants. So in handling data centers, it is very important to know that the availability of the business center is determined by the business. Is a business decision. So the owner of the data center needs to know how much time we have available to go down. You are providing a service. How much time do you have to stop that service without incurring unnecessary charges or SLA surcharge if you are unable to deliver? So, and that's why data center availability goes with what you call data center availability, as represented as a percentage of time by which it will be available. Now, what that means is that we have 99% availability. That means you have 3 days, 15 hours, and 40 minutes downtime per year. Now, the question is, can your business afford 3 days, 15 hours, 40 minutes downtime? What is the cost of the downtime? Because you have downtime costs, you must also consider downtime costs in your data center. So if you cannot afford to go down for 3 days, 15 hours, 40 minutes, then you need to move up the availability level by going up by 99.9, 99.99, 99.999, and 99.9999. That's 4 nights, and that gives you 32 seconds downtime per year, which is very good. But of course, as you move up the availability level, so also is the cost of having your data center at the same time. So this is very important to note. Then, having gone through availability, that leads us into what we call data center availability classification. Now, your data center is classified based on the availability it has, and quite a lot of work has been done on that. We have quite a number of guidelines and standards, and that's how we're able to come up with what we call the tier level or the rated level. So we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and so on. So these are the 4 tier levels. It's also rated 1, rated 2, rated 3, rated 4, and so on, or called class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class up to that level. So, and this is what actually defines the resilience of the data center and the amount of downtime it can accommodate. It also shows the category of data center. So when you say a tier 1 data center, that is, it is not redundant. It is 99.67% available. That's the availability. So if your business cannot support 99.67 availability, then you need to move to the next level. That is tier 2, which is 99.74% availability. Now, it is redundant. Tier 2 is redundant. It is has improved availability due to additional number of redundant components in critical parts of the infrastructure, and that is tier 2 for you. Then the next level is tier 3, which is rated 3 as well. It gives you concurrent maintainability. That is, one side is active, the other side is passive. So for each time you want to do maintenance, you have to shut down one part and then maintain it while the other part is active. But the two parts are not active at the same time, and that takes you to rated tier 4 level, or rated 4, which is fault tolerant. It allows concurrent maintenance in any of the two parts, and it gives you 24/7 operations without causing downtime. So we have two active parts, 2 into n+1 configuration. It is concurrently maintainable, it is compartmentalized, and it is fault tolerant. Next is that in considering data center, you also have to look at causes of critical failures. Now, from the chart, you can see that equipment failure can give you as much as 28%. System design error can give you 20%. Human error can be as much as 18%. Installation error can be, equipment design error can be 13%. Installation error can be 10%. And other small errors as commissioning, maintenance, oversight, all form about 13%. So, and when you look at the total number of these critical failures, you will see, or you will observe, that errors related to human beings or personnel is as much as 60% in this case. And that's why when we're able to automate, we're able to do better data infrastructure management, we're able to include artificial intelligence, it reduces human error as much as possible. Here, we know that over 70% of data center downtime is also caused by maintenance and operational processes. Of course, humans are also involved in maintenance and operational processes. And that's why, in order to reduce possible downtime, the facility must be well designed and certified. The operations of the facility must be well designed and certified. And the personnel must be well selected, trained, and certified. And with all these three triangles, it ensures that the data center delivers as designed effectively, with minimal downtime to the business and minimal impact on business. Now, if this is to be done, then that requires that there are certain benchmarks that needs to be done in order to allow you to be able to benchmark your system with existing standards or guidelines. So in essence, we have what we call guidelines, or better still, standards in the industry that allows us to work through those standards to ensure we get the desired business availability that is suitable for the business. And that's why we have uptime, we have TIA 942 and CTIA 942 standards, we have the Big C standard, we have the SS 507 standards, and we have the EN 506 European standards. All these are standards and guidelines, and there are differences in these standards and guidelines for us to make use of, in form of the uptime focuses more on electrical and mechanical. The TIA and CTIA 942 focuses on all aspects of data center, with electrical, mechanical, architectural, telecom, site location, safety, security, and so on. So, and these are the different standards, same as the European standard. They are all standards, standard documents, while some are high-level guidelines. It's also important to note that some of majority of them are for non-profit, especially the standards are for non-profit, while the guidelines are commercial in nature. Then a global survey indicated that 78% of respondents use the ANSI TIA 942 as the standard of choice when designing and building their data centers. So because it is a standard, and that's why a majority of respondents will naturally go for what we call a world standards rather than a high-level guideline from a vendor. And that is the essence of having standards, global standards. And this global standards is applicable anywhere in the world and is acceptable. And it's also a combination of standards from different standard bodies. So these standards are most popular standards, real and comprehensive. They are open standards available to all, clear and detailed and transparent. And they are issued by non-profit standard body. So, and that's why it's not for profit, but it is to ensure standards. Just as Standard Organization of Nigeria ensures that standards are laid down. Those standards are not for profit, but for control and to ensure that people, consumers are getting value for their money. So, and that's why the ANSI 940 standards is the consulting analysis can be performed by a variety of independent organizations. So there's no single vendor lock-in in this case, as some high-level guidelines that you have. So, and these ANSI 940 audits are one of the most cost-effective quality assurance audits that you can have anywhere in the world, and that is the nature of what we call the data, the certification in data center. So that leads us to the under quality control and assurance, the facility, the ANSI 942 data center facility audit and certification. Just as we have said earlier, the facility needs to be designed and needs to be certified to ensure that it conforms to standard. The operations of the data center also need to be designed and certified, same as the personnel working in the data center environment. They need to be carefully selected. They also need to be trained and certified as professionals in the industry. So we need to remove some form of quackery by ensuring that we have adequate training and certification. For the facility, there are two types of this validation and certification. We have the data center design validation. Now, this phase ensures that data centers are designed for new build data centers. They are designed to standards. They are designed to world-class standards. And for data centers already built, this design will be drawn and it is going to be looked into and ensure it conforms to standard. That is called the data center design validation. Then the next is that we have data center conformity certification. The data center conformity certification ensures that data centers are built in line with the validated design in one. So once you have a validated design, that data center conformity certification ensures that your data center was built in line with it, because there are several cases where we have plans and the infrastructure is not conforming to plan. So that is the essence of data center conformity certification. Next is called the data center operations audit and certification. That is the operations of day-to-day operations of data center, and that comes in about 11 disciplines. So we have service level management, project management, monitoring and reporting, facility management, organization, safety management, security management, and a host of others, including data center operations. So all these form the data center operations. So all these, there are about 11 disciplines under the D course called the data center operations standards, and each one, so data center operations standards give the flexibility of organizations auditing for, if not all the 11, you can pick the few ones that is relevant to that organization. It's so flexible that you can pick the few disciplines that is relevant to the organization, and you can audit and certify based on those, and you can continuously improve on that operations and audit from time to time, and that's the flexibility. So that's called the data center operations standard audit and certification. So it ensures that operations are seamless and efficient, and it removes a lot of errors in the system, which causes data center downtime. And the third part of the component is the data center training and certification. We have said that personnel working in the data center should be carefully selected, they should be trained, and they should be certified. So under this training and certification, we have the design and build. We have about 4 certifications there. We have the certified data center professional, CDCP. We have the certified data center specialist, certified data center expert, and certified network cabling design professional, CNCDP. Next is the maintenance and operations, where we have the certified data center facility operations specialist, CDFOS, the certified data center facility operations manager, CDFOM. Then next is the risk. Under risk, we have certified data center professional, risk professional. We have the certified data center migration specialist. Then lastly, it's called the standards and compliance. Under it, we have the certified TIA 942 design consultant, certified TIA 942 internal auditor, CTIA, and certified TIA 942 external auditor, CTEA. So all these are the certifications for personnel in the data center. And it is interesting to know that both certification for facility, operations, and for personnel, all these above services are available locally in Nigeria and in Africa in general. So you don't have to go further. And these certifications, particularly the trainings, it can be instructor-led, that is, you have face-to-face with your instructor in a physical environment. It can be virtual instructor-led, that is, it's going to be put by a live, you are going to be joining a live presentation, and you are going to be you will have full interaction with your facilitator. You can ask questions, you can interact. That is possible. You also have what's called the training on demand. This gives you the flexibility of for those who are self-learners or self-taught. So you have your package, you read, you have videos to refer to several times, and you can take your exam at your own time. You go through the course within your own time, because it's going to be done. It's offline. It's asynchronous. It's going to be offline, and you're going to take the course at your own pace by watching the videos, reading the text, and then you can take the exam at your own convenience. All these are available locally here in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. So in conclusion, we say that data centers have become the heart of modern business today, and they are increasingly becoming an indispensable factor of success. Everybody knows today that data center is the business. If there's no data center, then there's no business. Those in the back industry, they fully understand this, and that's why they are ready to spend to ensure that the data center is up and running. Because 1 hour down, even in fact 20 minutes downtime or 30 minutes downtime can mean consequences of serious losses in millions of naira. So it's a no-brainer to invest in resilient and efficient data center. And that's why building and operating data centers to global standards and best practices ensure the highest level of efficiency is achieved, thereby protecting investment and playing the critical role of meeting IT and business goals. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope our questions and answer session will give insight into more of those gray areas that may appear in the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Hafiz, for your wonderful presentation. We really appreciate your time. You took us through what it takes to truly run a data center, some of the passive components. You also talk about some of the training and certifications that are required. I'm glad to say that with our partnership with NIEEE Lagos chapter, we'll be able to give you more in the training and certification space. Thank you. I would like to call on you to just take a short poll, a short 30-second poll. Thank you.
I welcome us back from the pool. That's a great exercise. In the course of that pool also, permit me also to recognize joining this webinar with us today, Engineer Taiwo Ejiwumi, Membership Secretary of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer, Lagos chapter. Without taking much of our time, I would want to call on Engineer Oguntula Olubolaho, Assistant Engineer with Cisco Systems, to please take us through active data center devices. Engineer Olubolaho, you're welcome, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Olabode. Right. So I'll be taking us through the active data center devices, and for us to get a perspective of what these devices are and all of that, we'll go through some little bit of definition of terms, because I'm trying to drive home a point from this. Right. So the first thing, what exactly is data localization? Data location is simply the act of storing data on any device. As to the exact location of it, I won't speak too much to that because I think the next section is going to talk so much about that, right? So, but the key thing is data is just about storing data on any device. Now, what is that device? What kind of devices is going to be? We'll get into that as the session proceeds. Now, let's talk about a cloud platform, the hardware and operating environment of a server in an internet-based data center. A lot of people, when they hear the word cloud, they think of something that is just imaginary and up there. And I can tell you, a cloud is basically something that is remote to you. When I say remote to you, you are physically not there. So trust me if I tell you the cloud data center you are accessing could be somewhere in Yanopaja when you are even in the US. It is what makes it cloud to you is just the location it is remote to you and you're accessing it over the internet. And the key things to know from this, it's a data center because it is a first thing, it's a data center and it contains a bunch of servers. Next thing I'll talk about is what exactly is then a data center. A large group of network computer servers typically used by organizations for the remote storing, processing, and distribution of large amounts of data. Now, some key things we need to note from here. What we are talking about a large group of networked computer servers. So you could have servers scattered around different things and different places. What makes it a data center from an active device point of view is how you interconnect these servers together. Right, so you can't really talk about something being a data center without talking about the kind of technology used to interconnect. You can't talk about something being a data center without the type of servers that are in it. We had gone through the session before and now showed us what physically a data center would be. So now I'm talking about what logically a data center would be. Right. Right. So logically, what a data center will be. Now, for Cisco, we offer a complete data center portfolio. What do I mean? I've spoken about logically what a data center could be and the technologies, and I will tell you there are a myriad of technologies you need to put in place to logically call something a data center. For a bank and for most top organizations, a data center is not just a bunch of servers together. It's about the technologies running between them. So you need to talk about networking, which is actually how you interconnect all these servers together. There are devices that help you achieve that role. There are technologies that help you achieve that role. I will go into them shortly. We also talk about security, right? Nobody wants to store data in a place that is not secure. Not just because of your data getting missing or getting lost, is a case of unauthorized personnel having access to your data. And you can also agree with me that data is useless if you cannot analyze it. Having a bunch of data stored up somewhere without any analytics to it is not of benefit to anybody. That is why even let's talk about data center. Let's even talk about storing files in an office. You have drawers where you keep certain files in certain place. You go to an hospital and they are arranging the patient files in alphabetical order or something. A form of analytics is always needed whenever data is involved. Compute is basically processing the data, like the resources available to process data. You're talking in terms of storage space, you're talking in terms of processor, you're talking in terms of cores of CPU and all of that. We'll get into all of that very briefly. Workloads. Now, workload is actually the kind of data. What do I mean? You agree with me when you're storing data, if you are storing files, when I say files, now storing pictures is different from different from storing documents, is also different from storing text, right? So basically the type of data that is being stored varies from time to time, and this also has a direct impact on the type of servers or the type of services you have available to store this data. When we talk of management, you have all these devices at different sections of the data center. You also need a way to actually manage the devices. Nothing nothing is useful if it cannot be managed. You can't just have devices running amok in a data center without having something to manage them all together. Now let's talk about IoT. Now, before now, we are taking IoT to be different from networking or to be different from the data center, but there is virtual part of what forms a data center. What do I mean? You have very large data centers in the world whereby you are trying to remotely control cooling, remotely control security. Yes, you can say a security camera is not a networking device, but a security camera is actually like an IoT device, because with information you get from the security camera, you can know when to, is there somebody having an authorized access to the data center, or is there something being going wrong there? With environmental sensors connected back into the network, you know if this location is too cold, if it is too hot, are the fans working, is the AC working? So when you think about the global picture of having, the idea is not to have a fanciful building as a data center. The idea is to have a dark building with servers inside and it operating optimally. We saw in the previous slides the difference between having 99.9% and 99.999%, and it's actually a lot. Your kind of IoT devices also helps you manage all these things together to make sure you have everything working in one space, right? So I'll go further now, trying to talk about this different segment of the networking, or this segment of the active devices, and kind of tell you about the devices and the technologies that play in that space. First thing that comes to mind for me, or what comes to the mind of most people when they talk about a data center, is actually the servers, which I'll refer to as compute. Now, why do I refer to servers as compute? Servers basically just, they help you store data and also try to analyze and categorize data, right? When you talk about compute from a Cisco perspective, you're basically talking about UCS. UCS is Cisco's word for servers, which is just a raw form of compute and storage. So imagine a server being something, imagine a server to be the, let me use the word, the senior brother of your computer, because your computer can also be a server. It's just that what the servers we have in this data center will have more CPU. By CPU, I'm talking about cores of processor, more memory, which in local terms is called RAM. Maybe your laptop has 8 gig RAM, 16 gig RAM. When you're talking about data centers, or you're talking about servers, you're talking about maybe 3 terabits of RAM and so much. And you also talk about things like storage, right? Storage is basically, how much hard disk space, how much hard drive we have. On a local system, you could have 512, 1 terabits of hard drive. And but in data centers, you're talking about petabytes of data and all of that. So you need specialized systems or specialized devices for you to store all of this. So in Cisco, we refer to them as UCS, basically the servers. Now, I'll talk about Hyperflex next, then jump straight into networking. For Cisco, what we call Hyperflex is basically when we try to merge UCS, networking, and storage all together. You have UCS that is basically the server. You have the networking that tells you how multiple servers connect together. And you also have storage that is external to the server. So when you hear the word an hyper-converged infrastructure, so typically your servers are a converged infrastructure. The hyper-converged infrastructure is basically when you now have storage and networking all together to your servers. We have something called Hyperflex. Intersites and intersite workload optimization manager, those are like software components that lets you manage these servers. Don't forget earlier, I spoke about the ability to manage these servers is also very key to how these servers actually operate. The next thing we'll talk about in active devices is actually the network. What should come to mind here is basically the active devices, your routers, your switches, and all of that. But the world is moving from looking at boxes to actually looking at technology. What do I mean? We are not so concerned about the boxes you have in a data center, but what kind of technology you can run on those boxes. So the boxes are key, but what is much more important is what technologies those boxes let you run. I have very large data centers in the world that decide, okay, I am big enough, I can order white boxes because I want to run certain technologies on them. So in as much as you think of the boxes, routers, switches, firewalls, and all of that, you also need to think about what technology you can run on these routers and switches to interconnect the network together. One major technological buzzword we have right now is what we call SDN, which is a software-defined network. It's a pretty large buzzword, but basically what it's trying to tell you is that for the next generation network, everybody looking at networks whereby you don't have to manually configure or manage devices one by one. You are looking for the opportunity to manage a group of devices all together. I think earlier I spoke about workloads, which are basically how what you have on the different servers. Because in truth, you don't, for a business, you are not worried about, your business is not about the data center. Your business is not about the active devices. Your business is about the workloads you have in those data centers and how you can actually get information from those workloads. So you have solutions from Cisco that help you, okay, this is how your workloads are performing. This is how your applications are performing, because what the business owner wants to run is actually the applications. The next thing I will talk about from all of this is actually now the security part of the data center, right? And I can tell you, right? Okay, so before I go into the security part of it, this is just like an high-level picture of what the active data center devices look like. You have the servers, you have the switches, you have the racks, and all these pictures interchange. You will see why I say all these pictures interchange, or what these diagrams look like by the time I go to the last slide of this presentation. So back to the security, the data center security component. Now, the first thing you need to remember about security in the data center is this. The first step in security is visibility. You cannot see what you cannot. You cannot protect what you cannot see. So the first thing you need to strive for when you talk about data center security is actually being able to see what is going on. It is when you see what is going on, you can actually decide to secure whatever it is. So imagine having the best security man guarding your building, but the security man is blind, right? He cannot see, right? He has become almost a liability to what he's supposed to do. So the first step is actually visibility. That's why the first thing I'll talk about when you're talking about data security components is actually solutions that gives you visibility into what exactly is going on. It is when I know what is going on, it is when I see what an hacker is trying to do, I can now decide to take an action against what exactly is going on. So visibility is actually very key in whatever security you want to implement in your data center. Then we also talk about segmentation, right? Segmentation is basically classifying applications or classifying data in different places. What do I mean? You have data centers that probably house data for multiple customers or multiple people or multiple countries. What will make you comfortable or confident in an ability of a data center to handle multiple customers is the ability to actually segment itself. Now, I'm not talking about physical segmentation like, customer A is on rack A, customer B is on rack B. That is not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about even if they are on the same rack, even if they are on the same server, we can actually go into the depth of what is being stored and segment those applications or segment those workloads or segment that data. You have quite a lot of solutions that play in that space. Now, one thing you need to note about active data center devices, I'll keep reiterating the point, is that it goes beyond the boxes. You also need to think about the solution the boxes can provide, right? So most of these things, it's not like, you have a box that does, I won't tell you there's a box that does titration, for example, a box that does ACI, or a box that does firewall, right? But you need to think about the solution. And the last thing I'll talk about on this slide is probably going to be about threat protection, which is basically, maybe we are more familiar with this. Basically, I see an attacker, I see an attack, and I try to block it using the firewall. So the firewall is like the most popular security component, but we have come to realize that a firewall is never enough for you to achieve total security. Now you have a firewall doing more than just access list and source and destination IP blocking and stuff like that. It does quite a lot of other activities such as stealth word tetration and and all of that. So these are just basically like pictures of the active devices. And if you have a pictorial memory of what we have in the first slide, I mean the first picture slide where you had the active networking device, they look so much alike. So the point I'm trying to make is, okay, fine, these devices might look alike, but your focus should be on what do they do and what solutions do they prefer. Now, just to wrap it up, right? I can say from Cisco we have what we call this data center architecture stack, right? And if you look at when you say something is a stack, it is end to end, and you try to put everything into like an high level block diagram, and you would see that everything I've spoken about today or in this presentation, actually you can see it present in this stack, from the active devices that. So what you see more here is the solutions these things prefer. So you see the security solutions at the side. You see the, when you hear automation, you're actually talking about the networking components of the data center. When you hear about multi-cloud, you're talking about the workloads in the data. So you can see how everything tied down all together to actually give you what the data stack is going to be. So I hope in this pretty short 17 minutes thereabout, I've been able to just take you through what Cisco has to offer, and not just about Cisco, right? So right, it's about what we have offering from an active devices component in the data stack. Now there are certifications you can do to get more in-depth knowledge, or things you can read to actually get exposed to some of these things. But the key, what I want to share with you today is, yes, they are active devices, but focus should be on, okay, fine, these are active devices, but this technology, these active devices would actually prefer, because that is what you're going to end up using in the data center. Thank you. So I think from everything I've said, we should be able to understand what the active devices are and the technologies are available to us to actually run in a data center, irrespective of be it on-prem, in the cloud, or wherever it is. Thank you very much, presenter and co-host.
Thank you very much, Engineer Bola. We really appreciate your time and your express explanation and presentation. You took us through visibility, segmentation, and threats. And I think this is very important, because each client within a data center, or each department within the data center, needs to be segmented, needs to be separate, and all that. So thank you very much again for your time. We would now be taking a very short poll, 30-second poll. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. We welcome everyone back from the pool. Please, let me take time to also recognize joining us on this webinar. Engineer Rafiu Balogun is the Assistant Secretary of NIEEE Lagos Chapter. And also I want to recognize here with us Engineer Solomon Oyefeso, a Principal Engineer with Ikeja Electric. It's time for us to take a very good and necessary topic: driving data localization within country, private, and hybrid cloud. Help us to give us, based on his Wealth of experience is Mr. Sunandos Batachhire. You're welcome, sir, Mr. Sunandos.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning, actually. Out here in India, it's the afternoon. Today, what I'm going to talk about is essentially a bit of an overview about understanding data localization, and then also talk about the need for in-country public and hybrid clouds, and take you through some design components, etc., at a very high level, and show you what exactly is needed to build a high-quality, performant private cloud. Sorry. Yeah. So I think I'll skip the slide since introduction has already been done. So today, about 3 years back, there was this article in The Economist which said that the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil but data. This was a very important time when a lot of these interesting stories were coming out in media about US elections being manipulated with data analytics, and Facebook data being compromised, and so on and so forth. So increasingly governments started realizing that to ensure their data sovereignty, they have to have control over the critical business and demographic data, which means that any laws that they put in place for any kind of data security or data sovereignty can only be implemented if that data is locally hosted in the country. And therefore, data localization is essentially the first step towards any compliance to government legislation. And as the gentleman earlier mentioned, that there is already a lot of directives in Nigeria from the government to banks and other critical businesses to bring in data in country. So the primary reason for that is only once the data is in country, it can be made compliant to local laws, and how the data is stored, how it is managed, what kind of security measures is put on top of that, who has access to the data, so on and so forth. Today, if you look at the global map, so this is a screenshot from the website of UNCTAD, which does a survey every year on the state of data protection and privacy legislation worldwide. As of February this year, more than 140 countries across the world had either laws in place or draft legislations in place for data privacy and protection. And as I said earlier, this is the primary driver for data localization. But as you can see, if you look at the presence of the large public cloud providers, they're only in very few countries. In all, they cover about 30 odd countries globally. And if you look at the context of Africa, they're only present in South Africa. So now, out of the 54 countries in Africa, only one country is where the public cloud providers are present. What about the rest 53 countries? The only option here is either some local service provider comes up and sets up quality public cloud offerings, or otherwise enterprises like you have to go out, build their own private clouds or hybrid clouds. So the benefit that you get when you set up a cloud in country, first and foremost, is data residency or data localization. We've spoken about that. Second is latency. So imagine that your application is either in Europe or in US or even in South Africa, and the users are accessing that from sitting in Nigeria. They will experience a very high amount of latency in reaching that server, and therefore the performance of that application may not be very good. The same point of time, if the server is hosted in Lagos or in Abuja and the users are also in the same city or close by, the latency is very low. It's under 10 milliseconds, and therefore the application performance is extremely good. The third element is obviously localized billing, where if you're paying to a local vendor in local currency for providing you these private cloud services, vis-a-vis paying an Amazon or a Microsoft Azure in US dollars, the benefit where there's a huge fluctuation every month in the dollar rates, as I understand, and therefore your ROI is not predictable. You really cannot predict how much would be your cloud bill every month. And in this case, since you're playing in local currency, you exactly know how much your cloud bill is going to be. So what are the best practices for building a robust cloud platform? First and foremost, we believe that there should be high use of open technologies. There are a lot of proprietary technologies out there which are very popular in building virtualization and cloud, but they are very expensive. And earlier, when open source technologies didn't have enough support available or enough adoption out there in the market, it made a lot of sense to going and buying these proprietary technologies. But today, open source is mainstream. All the large public cloud guys have built their clouds on open source. So has many large enterprises. Therefore, to keep your input costs low, avoid any vendor lock-ins, and reduce your total cost of ownership of the cloud, you should adopt an approach of using open technologies. Then from a use case perspective, you should create cloud architectures which are for both SMBs and enterprises. It should be able to address the needs of all kinds of users. And then at the same point of time, deliver both public, private, and hybrid clouds, or in the context of Nigeria, more about private and hybrid clouds from a single platform. You don't need to have separate platforms for the same. Then, from a service delivery perspective, you not only need infrastructure as a service, which is virtual compute, storage, and network, but you should also look at platforms which can provide you platform as a service and software as a service by partnering with some SaaS or PaaS provider, or having inbuilt platform as a service like virtual containers, database as a service, ID as a service, and so on and so forth. And most importantly, it's to get users to use that cloud service. It has to be very seamless, and there has to be a lot of automation. There has to be a lot of integration, so as to have a single pane of glass to manage everything for the user. Now, if you look at what kind of industries and use cases are there for public and private cloud. Now, if you look at public cloud, ITES, IT-enabled services, startups who are running their dev and test environments, media companies, e-commerce companies, digital or online businesses, e-learning companies, and remote work. These are areas which are more suited for running in a public cloud or a hosted private cloud kind of a environment. But if you look at financial services, government vertical, and research and development, where the data security is very critical and data really has to be behind a lot of enterprise firewall, etc., the private and hybrid cloud solutions are far more prevalent. Now, coming to the considerations for choosing a cloud service provider, first and foremost, it's important that the service provider offers a lot of self-service and automation layers for you, so that there's a minimal human involvement in any provisioning and management, and things are fairly automatic on the cloud, and resources are provisioned in minutes and seconds and don't take hours and days. Again, all resources should be available on demand from a availability and provisioning perspective. Cloud gives you that flexibility to buy the resource only when you need it, and then shut it off when you don't need it. So that is definitely something which is a bare requirement. And then having comprehensive suite of managed services along with providing the cloud infrastructure. So stuff like operating system management and database management, etc. These are services which should be made available. In addition to that, there should be a strong SLA that is provided, and usage-based billing, so that you're only paying for resources that you're using and not for rest of the infrastructure. Now coming to us, what we do essentially is we are a turnkey solution providers. We provide the entire stack for virtualization, containerization, and orchestration, and we build primarily on open source technologies. We also use some, proprietary software, but most of it is, or I would say 95% is open source technologies. Thereafter, we do a lot of automation layer on top of the cloud, delivering any kind of workflow and process automation. It's a fully SLA-backed managed service. You don't need to worry about any element of the management of the cloud. It's end-to-end managed by us 24/7 and operated by us. And it is deployed already with many leading enterprises and cloud service providers across Asia and Africa. Now, from an overall architecture perspective, what we essentially do is build the entire cloud on multiple use cases. And I've put the example of 2 use cases here. Now, obviously, every cloud needs quality hardware. And here, since Virtual Informatics is partnered with Cisco, so we'll use Cisco servers, network, and security infrastructure to build the cloud on. On top of that, we build the entire storage on software-defined technologies because they are far more scalable, stable, much more high performant than traditional storage technologies. And we have partnered with 2 companies, Storepool and OpenE, and they provide very high quality, high performant, high availability storage solutions. Now coming to the actual cloud deployment, we provide 2 architectures options to the customer. If you're essentially a large enterprise and you're essentially trying to replicate your data center architecture inside the cloud, which is essentially having multi-tier architecture, you have a DMZ layer, you've got an application layer, database tier, etc., and you're essentially managing all this through a virtual firewall. So that can be completely replicated into what we call a virtual private cloud cluster or the enterprise style network with tiered networks. And on this kind of a cloud, you can directly terminate your MPLS network, your point-to-point private connectivity, and actually not even use the internet to access the cloud. The second one is more of the new age kind of architecture, what is called the elastic cloud, or the way AWS designs their cloud network. So that essentially is a flat network. Every VM gets a public IP, and you use the concept what is called security groups to essentially create a set of ingress and egress rules to protect any VM from any kind of access-related attacks and so on and so forth. So even that can be deployed, and then we use we have options for using either Zen Server or KVM as open source hypervisors, and VMware vSphere as a enterprise proprietary hypervisor. On top of that, we use cloud and container orchestration. We use Apache Cloud Stack, Kubernetes, and Rancher for providing the cloud and container services. Then for the entire monitoring and visualization and operations, we use 3 open source softwares, Zabbix, Prometheus, and Grafana. This will give you a complete visibility into the entire cloud infrastructure and how it is faring and how well it is performing, etc. And then for any kind of automation to be done on top of this cloud environment, we have expertise on Ansible and Terraform. These are globally standardized and open source automation technologies which we use to deliver the cloud. So what are the key advantages that you get from this architecture? First and foremost, it's a fully integrated solution with a self-service portal, and it enables you to deliver any kind of bespoke cloud offerings to your users. You can offer virtual machines, virtual containers, Kubernetes as a service, storage as a service, network services, virtual firewall, virtual load balancer, so on and so forth. So all the necessary infrastructure as a service that you would like to offer to your users can be offered using this architecture. Since this is built on open source technologies, which are fairly standard, powering more than 200 clouds globally, so you can be quite sure that this is reliable and high performant, and we have very deep expertise on this entire stack, and therefore we are able to offer you a very comprehensive integrated SLA for the whole stack. and it comes with pre-integrated monitoring and automation systems, so you don't really need to work on doing any additional level of monitoring implementation on top of this cloud. And we leverage the strong SDN functionalities of the cloud to quickly and massively scale it up. And because it's built on open source technologies, most importantly, it will reduce your capex and opex by more than 30% when you compare it to proprietary stacks from traditional vendors. And lastly, because it's backed by our complete awesome support, it allows you to focus 100% on your business while we take care of everything else. That's it from me. I'll take up any questions now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sonando, for your presentation. We really appreciate your time. Please, if you have any questions, please post them on the Q&A section of the webinar. Thank you again for your time, Mr. Sonando. As they say, in learning, you would teach, and in teaching, you would learn by Phil Collins. I hope that we are taking this as important as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fernando and Mr. Kabir. It's another session we are going to go now, where we have the panel discussion. We have some panels here. We will also look into some questions that we have. So permit me now again to hand over to Mr. Kabir Ali. Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Engineer Olabode, our wonderful co-host. Thank you. You're doing a fantastic job. So I would like to call on the first panel member to answer this question, which is what does data and cloud localization mean for Nigeria and Africa? How does this impact on data laws in Nigeria and Africa? I would like to call on Engineer Olubola on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mohammed. Right. So when we say data localization, what does it mean for Africa? How does it have impact on data laws in Africa? So basically, let's start from what is fixed, which is what does data localization mean for Africa or Nigeria? It means for data being gathered and native to events or entities in Nigeria or Africa by extension, you want such data to be stored in those countries. Right. So you mean the data centers where this information is stored and processed is local to those countries. Now, the first step for you to achieve this is actually the laws in place, and beyond the laws in place, which is something we will not want to get into right now, is actually having the data centers that can actually serve the purpose of those that want to store this data in place, right? So you need, I know presently we have some couple of tier 3, tier 4 data centers in a country, right? But we're actually going to need more of that if there's going to be a global law. So what does this speak to? This means for information being stored by bodies such as INEC, bank, some level of Facebook data, WhatsApp, etc. You need these things to be stored locally in the country. And for some of these things to happen, and for all of these things to happen, you need to first have those data centers in place. And after these data centers are in place, you need to have the technologies in them to run it in place. And until some of these things are done, you can't really say you want to start localizing your data. The laws are one thing, but you also need the infrastructure to back it up. And when I say you need infrastructure, the active devices, the passive devices, the technology, the manpower. So basically everything we've spoken about from the 3 presentations we have in this webinar today need to be in place before we can start taking seriously about having data localization. And that improves our level of sovereignty, because you are less dependent on external bodies, and you talk less of things about interference. just like the last speaker talked about the US elections where they were, data was being tampered with and all of that. If some of those data was inside, as it is in the case of America, you are more confident about the integrity of the data. So you need to have the data centers, the active devices, the passive devices, the technology, and the manpower. And it gives you a great level of sovereignty when your data is actually localized. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Engineer Bolahan. We really appreciate that. We will now be moving into the next question, and we'll call on two of our panelist members to answer this question, starting with Engineer Basharum and then followed by Engineer Hafiz. And the question is, are there green technologies on the market or emerging that I need to be aware of when designing a new data center? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kabiru. That's a great question. There are great technologies that we need to take into consideration when designing data center. Yes. And of course, what do we mean by green data center or green technology? We're actually talking about efficient, data center, a sustainable, energy efficient, data center. And why are we doing this? We are doing this because of the worldwide energy requirements. Just like Engineer Ajibade has pointed out in one of his slides, we're also doing this due to climate change now. As we all know, this is really a topical and front burner issue now around the world. Yes, of course, we also have government policies that are also in place that are pushing for this, as too much of all these industrial emissions also have harmful effects, on human beings. Yeah, so there are several technologies that we need to consider while we are doing this, and of course, some of it we have touched on in the earlier presentations. Yeah, virtualization, for instance, like spoken about. When you virtualize, what are you doing? You're actually saving costs, operational costs in the area of power cooling and all that. And with this, you are also kind of miniaturing your data center. Instead of you to have a gigantic sized data center, which will require additional cooling systems and all that, you are actually bringing the size down. Yeah, so virtualization is one key area that we need to look at. And of course, in terms of power too, we also need to consider renewable energy systems. Of course, we have solar power systems now. We also even have other cooling systems that people are actually deploying now. I recently heard that Microsoft, one of their data center, of course, is still test run, located in the sea. And so with this, they are actually saving the world. They are saving the the business quite a lot of cost, and and all that. So cloud computing is also what we also need to factor into our design when we are building data center. We need to come up with a strategy to look at, okay, what are the services that we need to have on premises? Can we have a situation where we can have some services maybe hosted outside of our physical location? So I think all these brings together the fact that green technology is very important, and everyone needs to be aware of it. And I would also like to push further on this. It's not only when you are designing, data center that you need to consider all this. I believe we are mostly engineers and people with science background on this call. Even when we are designing our home, we should also factor sustainable, efficient energy system into it. Thank you.
Okay, so if I may add to what Engineer Basharon has said, that is true. Basically, when we are talking about green technologies, we have basically two aims. Number one, to reduce the carbon footprint that we emit, and secondly, to use energy efficiently as much as possible. And of course, we all know today we are going to be paying more for energy. So it means that if we want to avoid large overhead cost on energy, we need to be using energy efficiently and avoid wastages. So part of what part of the green technology we can apply for certain areas, especially areas in Southern Africa and the likes, where they have very cold climate, they can look at the opportunity of free air cooling. So because the temperature there is much low, especially during winters and the likes, and they have the opportunity to use the environmental air, which is much lower than the data center temperature, and use free air cooling. So that's one opportunity. We also have the opportunity of using what we call the data center infrastructure management. This is one application that ensures that all devices within the data center are running efficiently. If they are running efficiently, it means they are going to use less energy and reduce carbon footprint. And that is the importance of having efficient DCIM infrastructure in place to ensure that all the devices are monitored, you are seeing everything, and we are good to go. Also, we have when you have what we call low power servers, a lot of OEMs are coming up with low power servers which can achieve the same function with lesser amount of energy consumption, and that is a no-brainer. It means if I begin to look at low power servers which can achieve the same thing, then I'll be paying less for electricity. And these are what we call green technology. It means I will have reduction in the number of the electricity bill I pay, or if I'm generating, I need to generate less in order to support such servers. And these are some of those. And you can also look at on-site renewable energy generation. In fact, data centers can take advantage of certain areas. You can take advantage of hydro. You can take advantage of solar. You can take advantage of wind in good areas. We have very good wind areas in Africa, and even in Nigeria too. We have quite a number of areas that are good in wind. So these are areas that they can begin to look into, or look at if you have mini grids in such areas that can provide such service. They can lock into it and be an off-taker of such power that is produced in such environment. So there are real opportunities, especially in renewable energy, that data centers can lock into. Another way data centers can look at green technologies is in modular data centers. So with modular data centers, it is easy to deploy. Everything is integrated, the power, the active devices, the cooling, everything is integrated. And when you have such an integrated system, it means that it's going to consume less energy and they are going to be easy to deploy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Hafiz, and then also Engineer Basharum, for doing justice to that question that we have posed to you. Now we're going to be moving into the next question, and then we're going to be calling on Mr. Sunando and also Oyidamola Olaleka to give us a perspective. How can moving from mostly physical environment to a virtualized environment change a data center? Thank you.
Okay, so there are two main impact of moving from a mostly bare metal physical environment to a virtualized environment. Firstly is your efficiency of the data center improves humongously. So today, imagine you're running 20, 30, 40 applications. Each application needs about 10 servers, let's say. So you're running almost 300, 400 bare metal servers in your data center, which is easily 20 to 30 racks, and then switching gear, network gear, storage, etc. So it's essentially a fairly large setup that you would be running, consuming a lot of power, a lot of real estate in terms of data center space, etc. The moment you virtualize this, you can really shrink it down by almost 80%, which means that these 400 servers can be actually brought down to 40 or 50 servers, or even let's say 60 odd servers, which essentially means you're saving huge on power. The power consumption typically drops by 50 to 60%. Your rack spread comes down by a similar amount of time, which is about 80%, lesser rack space required, and therefore requirement for network ports, firewall ports, storage ports, etc. Everything really drops. So essentially, there's a huge amount of densification in your data center, which allows you to save a lot of money in terms of power, real estate, network gear, etc., etc. The second advantage that you get is around the speed and efficiency of operations. Moment everything is virtualized and it's running in a private cloud environment, there's a huge amount of automation which is there. Today in a bare metal environment, if an engineer requests for any bare metal resource, you will go and place an order with a system integrator. He'll take 2 to 3 weeks to deliver that hardware. Then you'll take a day to configure it, load the operating system, etc. So it's easily 3-4 weeks before resources are allocated to any engineer. But in a cloudified environment, engineer can go himself on a platform, request that for a resource, somebody, if required, approves that request, and within 30 seconds or 2 minutes, that entire virtual machine is provisioned and made available. So including approval, the whole thing can be done in 15 minutes, and resources are made available. Once the resource is up and running, the monitoring is automated. Once the resource requirement is over, the machine can be deleted. There are a lot of flexibilities in terms of operations that you get with the cloud environment. That's it from me.
So in terms of what I just was
We would have Damola come back again for connectivity. I would ask Sonny Damola to come back again. Thank you very much, Mr. Sunando, for responding to that question. We will have Onidamola back again as soon as we get good connectivity. Thank you. So I would now be moving on to, okay, Onidamola, go ahead.
Yeah, apologies for my network connectivity. So as I was saying, it a virtualized environment, you have more business continuity and uptime because you have so many capabilities that you don't have for example, a user is trying to submit a request on your website and probably a node crashes. With fault tolerance, to work around this failure and a valid response is still displayed to the user. It may be delayed. So with features like fault tolerance, high availability, and live migration, you are able to increase your continuity and also improve your business uptime. Talking about disaster recovery. Because with virtualized environments, you don't have to depend on a particular hardware vendor. So your disaster recovery site does not need to be 100% identical in hardware with your production environment. So you can create more affordable disaster recovery sites. Imagine being able to test and see your favorite site working. Because when you have a physical environment, you have to keep open because you cannot test when you need to use your GR site. But with a virtual environment, you are able to test and see how you feel in reality. Also, like about the extended life of older app. With your physical data center, you probably have older still running because you either cannot run them on your modern operating system or in your hardware. It just cannot run. So, guys, you can take the live and uptime of this app also is like so many things from moving from the physical data center to the center.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Onidamola, for that. We appreciate your input in as much as you had some little challenges. Now we're going to be moving now into the next question, and I'm going to be calling now on Engineer Hafiz and also Engineer Basharum. So Engineer Hafiz will go first, and then Engineer Basharum will support. So the question is, what are the dominant trends in data center design today, and what are the benefits and trade-offs when using or ignoring them? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Over the years, there have been a lot of developing trends in the data center industry, and quite a number of them that we need to be aware of while designing our data centers. Like you said, you also need to be aware of the benefits and trade-offs. So we need to balance, and at the end of the day, make it a business decision whether to go for it or not. Will this be okay for our business, and so on. So first of all is that one of the first technology that's trending is the co-location services. And we can see that a lot of them are springing up in Nigeria here. Tier 3, Tier 4 data centers springing up as co-location services. So this gives us the opportunity to have, so it means businesses can focus on their core. For example, for those in the banking industry, it gives them the opportunity to concentrate on core banking activities rather than managing data centers. And that's why those co-location services will be ideal for such. It means they have the opportunity of putting their servers on site, which is managed by the service provider, and they can free their minds of a lot of management issues, fueling, cooling, power, and communications and the likes. So it gives them the opportunity to focus more on their core professional activities. However, there are benefits and downsides to it. The benefit is that it gives you the ability to concentrate on your core business line. However, the challenges that you may face is that you don't have so much control over that site because it is not your site. So it's also you have to rely on information provided to you by your service provider. So that's why you need to ensure that you select the appropriate service provider. Ensure that those sites that you want to deploy your servers are certified sites by standard bodies, and that gives you some level of confidence to know that, okay, yes, I'm placing my data in a safe environment. So these are some of those things that you need to look at. Secondly, you may also consider hybrid IT deployments. Of course, with the advent of cloud services today, discover that a lot more people are, moving on to the end of the cloud, pushing their information into the cloud. However, once you push your information into the cloud, it is seen as pushing it in some form of public environment, so to say, because you are not only the one playing in that scene, there are so many others playing in the same scene. Different from when you have your own premises data center, which is local to you, which you have total control over. So these are some of those things that you have to do. So it means at the end of the day, you come up with a hybrid. Okay, let me have certain sensitive data that I have with me locally that I have much control over, and I only need to push into the public cloud the ones that need to go outside, so that at least there is a peace of mind that you are looking over your data and security. However, the downside to that is that your communication link and your latency. So those are some of those challenges that you may face, because in pushing your data, so it means your communication link may also bring down your tier, the availability of your data center and the tier categorization. So these are some of those things you look at. So it means you have to get good communication links. Then you have to bother with latency depending on the distance between your physical local data center and the cloud. So then another one is we have what we call the innovative cooling technologies. I think I mentioned that earlier too. So we have so many innovative cooling technologies. Part of it is the free air cooling. We have some other development when it comes to cooling. So that's why at the end of the day, when designing your data center, you want to look at, okay, am I going to look at raised floor cooling? Am I going to look at hot eye or cold eye? These are options that you can choose for. So the important thing is to choose what suits your business requirements. You want to go for modular data centers where you have the cooling, the power, and the active devices all integrated into one. All these are innovative cooling devices. And when you come into the modular data centers, the cooling requirement is a lot less than the regular cooling, either raised floor cooling or hot high and cold high. So these are options that one can easily look at. And lastly, one can also look at intelligent monitoring systems. These are very, very important. As people have a hybrid system of between co-location and cloud, or you have local on-premise data center and cloud, you need to have what we call intelligent monitoring system, because when you are in co-location particularly, you are restricted by what the co-location service gives you, and you're unable to have full control over your data. But with the intelligent monitoring technologies now available, it gives you that flexibility of having control over your own portion of the data within the co-location environment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Hafiz. And from my side, I will just add one or two to the points that has already made, just to drive home all these. Yeah, so from my side, number one thing is budget. When you look at the constraint that you may say the most important when we want to consider building a data center, the budget is very key to it. How much money do we have in place to be able to accomplish all this? If we need to build our own data center, how much is it going to, the total cost of ownership, which includes the capex and also the operational costs. And so it's something that most CIO, most business owners always focus on to ensure that they are able to provide service and support to business, enabling facility for business within the budget constraint. So that's number one. Number 2 points that I can also think of here is security. Security is also a trendy point, and of course an important burner issues when you are talking about data, whether co-location, virtualization, cloud computing, and all that. For most organizations, they don't really have the capability to even ask the right question. How are you keeping my data? How are you protecting my data? Who has access to my data and all that? So this is one area where we need to really consider. Yes, if you really want to do, for instance, maybe co-location, for instance, I would say that okay, the kind of organization that wants to go into that should also have in place people that understand information security. So they can begin to ask questions. How are you provisioning my service? On which VLAN? Is it a private VLAN? Who has access to these? Can I see your audit review? Who audits who? And all that, so that the overall benefit of protecting data can be achieved in the long run. So I think those 2 points. Okay, yeah, I may also want to also talk about software design network, as one of the trendy things that we hear much now in data center, and that's around the active system design. So where a situation where you see that the data center traffic can actually be managed, by applying policies, can be centrally managed, and all that from the perspective of software. So with all this, yes, the trade-off, number one is capability to me, whether we have the right people to ask the right questions or to even man or monitor all these things for us, and also the budget. Yeah, I hope I've been able to do justice to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Basharon, and thank you very much, Engineer Hafiz, for doing justice to this question. We really appreciate your time. Now we're going to be moving to the final panel question, and this question will be posed again to Oyedamola Olaleka and then Mr. Bolahon, Engineer Bolahon. So what determines whether an organization should choose private, public, or hybrid cloud? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I hope you can hear me loud and clear now.
Go ahead.
Okay, so to answer this question, I'd like to state that you need to know the difference between this cloud environment to be able to make informed decisions about the kind of cloud that you want to put in place in your organization. Just like Sunendo has mentioned, both the private, the public, and the hybrid cloud all have their pros and cons. So knowing all these pros and cons, knowing their requirements, and how you can scale them helps you to make decisions. For example, in a private cloud, you have to have fewer security concerns. So if you are a kind of business that requires a lot of security, then you know that you have to choose a private cloud. So it's important that you know these cloud platforms and how they affect your own organization. So you need to look into these three cloud environments, look at their benefits, look at their cons, and make decisions. So having known this difference, then you have to look at what is your business requirement. Does the organization deals with regulations? Do you work with sensitive data? Are you interested in scalability and flexibility? Does your business require some industry-based requirements and regulations? For example, in the telecommunications, you have high interest in privacy protection. Also, in your banking industries, you are required to maintain a high level of confidentiality with your sensitive data. So knowing your business requirements helps you to make decisions about which cloud environment you want to go with. Another thing I would like to mention is cost. We all know that the underlying concern for every IT executive is managing cost. So looking at the cost, you now have to make informed decision about, okay, this is what I have, and this is what I need. How do I now manage? How do I match my need to my budget? So one important thing that you need to mention when making decision is that it all boils down to your budget and your needs. So when you make informed decision about your budget and your need, then you're able to align these two and make better decision. Also, you need experts knowledge, because choosing between a public, private, and an hybrid cloud is actually a little bit complicated, because cloud computing is constantly evolving. So it's important that you have a contact, an expert, to help you determine what solution best works with your need and your budget. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so just to add a little to what Purindamola said, right? Beyond all the financial implications and regulatory needs, if all that is checked out, you also need to understand what your business is. I think we've established going to the cloud make you grow a little bit faster than if you are just solely physical, right? But also, yesterday was, I think, what everybody in the world calls a Black Friday and all of that. You know, for most FinCon, for example, on such days, your level of transactions actually swell, right? So if typically you use a private cloud, which is on-prem, to do most of all these things you do, right? On such days, maybe you want to go for an hybrid model, because with the things that are public and hybrid, your scaling factors are actually easier, right? So you can actually just, it's more like a yo-yo effect whereby you grow and contract. So if that is a requirement for your business, then you might want to start looking, do I do private, do I do public, do I do hybrid? So what your customer demands are as a business person. Do I have particular days whereby I have lots of transactions and fewer transactions? All of these also try to determine what kind of cloud you go for.
Thank you very much, Engineer Oguntula, and also thank you very much, Onyedamola Olaleka, for for taking this particular panel question. We really appreciate your time, and we're very grateful. Now we're going to thank you. Now we're going to now start moving into the Q&A. But on this juncture, I'll hand over to Engineer Olabode.
Very much, Mr. Kabiru, for that session, wonderfully moderated. We have questions already from the participant, and I have question one here. Is it only private sector players that are largely into cloud services? apart from regulatory responsibilities, what other areas of collaboration are available from the government end? Let me take it again. Is it only private sector players that are largely into cloud services? Apart from regulatory responsibilities, what other areas of collaboration are available from the government end? I will call on Mr. Sunando to handle this, and Engineer Basharu also will give us an answer to this. Mr. Sunando, please. Okay, can I please have Engineer Basharu to please take this question and answer it, please, while we'll wait for Mr. Fernando. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Engineer Labode, for that question. I think it's a very important question. So, talking about private sectors, yeah, I think if you look at the market share and all that, the person asking the question is correct. Because going into providing cloud service, you need quite a lot of capital investment, and of course running, investment and all that. So, yes, it is true, or largely true, that private sectors are, one of the big players in this, particular market segment. And I'm sure you've heard about Amazon and all the rest, Microsoft, Azure. In Nigeria, I think we also have a few of them that also provide this kind of service and all that cloud-based services, both as at different layers, software service, maybe hardware, colocation, and all that. Yes, talking about the role of the government. Well, yes, the basic responsibility of any government in any society is to provide the enabling environment, for private sector to actually thrive. And so, number one thing that the government need to put in place is policy. Policy that will be able to roll out these benefits strategically, to the consumers and also to the sellers of the product. And of course, policy that will also protect the sovereignty of the government. So the government of any nation is in that position to be able to have that God's view and also this protective, stand regarding, cloud and all other services as well. Yeah, but that's not the only area where you also see government player. Of course, majorly, government also handle some of the important aspects, especially connectivity into these services, especially edge connectivity, I really mean. For instance, I'm sure you will have known that in China, if you are within China, there are some services that you are able to reach maybe from Nigeria, like Google and all that, may not work while you are in service. And what is in place is the government of that country have firewall in place. We actually filters, some of those traffic. And of course, they are looking at this from either protecting the interest generally of the country, or guiding against, or what we can say maybe security posture. So those are what we can really say are the primary responsibilities for government. But then, government can still do a lot by providing enabling, environment where you can actually have other players, that can come, other smaller players that can actually come into this field to be able to compete, so that it won't be as if it's one kind of monopolistic, market or something, and so government can help around providing of grants, um, pushing license requirements and all that, maybe loans and all that, and also building of capabilities. I mean, building of human resources so that small firms can be able to also look at, which area can I even, be able to come into this value chain. For instance, maybe development, information security and all that. There are so many value chains that are, inbuilt into, cloud service, which I feel government will be able to also help in improving and increasing the benefits to the society in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Bashir. Do I have
Yes, I'm there.
Mr. Sunando to give us the Indian perspective to this question?
Yes. Okay, so based on our experience working with government bodies across the world, actually, government typically invests in cloud only for other government users. So let's say we've worked on a project in Ghana, we worked on a project in Botswana, one in Asia and Indonesia, wherein the government has invested in setting up cloud infrastructure, but it's primarily for use by other government bodies, or in one case, it was for all the universities in the country. So government typically doesn't get into enterprise or commercial cloud services. But having said that, the opportunity is actually the other way around. Today, governments are looking for enterprises and private sector players to come and provide them with cloud services. And if you can build something for government as a service provider, and then go and sell it as a dedicated cloud infrastructure for government users and ministries, etc., there is a lot of potential there. I'm seeing a lot of RFPs come out globally around this kind of requirement, what is called a Gov Cloud requirement, and that is a good market to look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I've heard two of you say to us today that governments will leverage on private sector to thrive in terms of data localization. I will hand over now to Mr. Kabir Ali to take the next question and answer to it. Mr. Ali, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Olabode. Thank you very much for supporting and co-hosting this conference today. We have received a number of questions from the participants, and we're just going to take them in terms of how they have come. Somebody has asked, can we get this presentation material? Yes, we would share the presentation material alongside the email that would go out later on after the event. Then also somebody was very interested as well in the result of the polls. So we would look at this and revert in terms of being able to share the result of the poll. So generally what you would see is where most people has responded to. However, you wouldn't be able to see who is responding. So those are really some of the questions that have come in, and we have really been blessed today. So I will now again hand over to I will now go into a very short poll shortly, just a 30-second poll. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabir, for taking us through that exercise again to get the feedback from all the participants. The pleasure is mine again to call on Mr. Kabiru Aliu, the founder of Transform Africa, for the closing remarks. Mr. Kabir, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Engineer Olabode. I stand on all existing protocols and would like to thank everyone for joining the session today, but particularly I'll be focusing on just giving a bit of summary of what we have discussed, right? So we have been able to talk about the topic, data localization, and what it means, in the context of Nigeria and Africa. We have also been able to look at passive components. Engineer Fiz Ajibade was able to take us through the passive component, talking about how important having a fully effectively running data center is for the running of a cloud platform or any devices that then sit on the data center. We are also able to look at the active component by Cisco, taking us through the hyper-converged infrastructure, taking us through why we need to have superior equipment and the hardware running within the data center. And he's talked about a number of things. He talked about the importance of visibility of what is happening on the network. He also talks about the importance of segmentation and the threats and preventing threats, both from a reactive and also from a proactive perspective, right? He talked about the segmentation, especially looking at the fact that it is important that everyone have their individual houses or virtual machines or environment within the data center. Also, we took a presentation as well from Mr. Sunando, looking at data localization, also exposing us on how we can build a private cloud platform, looking at the virtualization layer, both from a closed source perspective, looking at your VMware or your Hyper-V, and also looking at your open source platforms as well, which is very effective when you build a similar private cloud like AWS. He talked about the importance for an organization or government to actually build their own private cloud, especially looking at latency, looking at localized billing, and looking at a number of things that really, and data, of course, data localization, or in other words, data residency. So this puts together the message that we're trying to say today, which is, what concerns do you have as an organization? How can you rapidly deploy your solution or your services to the market, especially when Engineer Bolahon talked about Black Friday? You want to launch your services, you want to increase your capacity because you are hitting world record demands for your solutions and services. You need to be agile enough to scale, and to scale aggressively, because that is the time where you can make your revenue for the entire year and make your employees and your shareholders very, very happy. So you need to be able to make sure that you have that agility by considering looking at private cloud for your organizations. Start having that discussion, start putting it in your budget, start engaging. You can engage us, you can engage Virtual Informatics, you can engage Cisco, you can engage the learning space and Indicas for us to put together this superior value proposition. However, though, you don't even need to worry about managing it, because it can come with an outsourcing model as well, where we would manage the infrastructure for you. So again, I would like to thank everyone really and for the opportunity given to me to give the closing remark. At this juncture, I'll call on my able engineer Olabode Olaleka. Thank you for the
Thank you very much, Mr. Kabir Aliu. I do really appreciate you even giving me the opportunity to take the vote of thanks. Really great things happen when great minds come together, indeed, we have been able to land us safely to data localization by building a cloud platform and data center in Nigeria and Africa. I do really want to appreciate our expert of panelists who have done justice to this topic. We are saying a big thank you to Mr. Sunando Batataya, Engineer Afis Ajibade, Engineer Oluseyi Basharun, Engineer Oguntula Olugbolahan, and Oyi Olaleko. Permit me at this point to really appreciate the organizers of this webinar that is being led by the chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Lagos chapter, in person of Engineer Bayo Olusodo, FNIEEE, MNSC. Together with the team, I have my humble self, Engineer Olaleko Olabode, MNSC MNIEEE, Deputy Chairman, NIEEE Lagos chapter. And also we have Engineer Abiodun Odewale, is the Vice Chairman of Control System, NIEEE Lagos chapter. Also to recognize and thank Engineer Oyetayo Adegboyega, the Vice Chairman, Power, NIEEE Lagos chapter, and Engineer Oluseyi Basharu, MNSC, MNIEEE, is the Vice Chairman of ICT, NIEEE Lagos chapter, and our able Technical Secretary, Engineer Omar Imobe. Together with the team from Transform Africa, where we have also Mr. Adumeke Nicholas, Mr. Enyebet Nambi. And I want to say a special thank you to Nelly. She has been doing the yeoman's work to ensure that all things work the way we have experienced it today. At this point, again, please, I would want to let us know that we began this webinar with over 50 participants, and at the time we're ending it, I have that boldness to let us know that we still maintain the same figure, even some are going and are coming in. Nevertheless, I would want to appreciate a past chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer, Engineer Adekunle Makinde, FNSC, FNIEEE. He stayed from beginning to the end of this webinar. Sir, indeed, you are a leader. We really do appreciate you. And to all the attendees, we are saying a big thank you to you all, and I believe we have been able to discuss the importance of data localization in Nigeria and across Africa as the continent increases the development of locally built data centers and cloud platforms. To this end, I have that great honor to say and to greet everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year 2021. Thank you and God bless you. Bye-bye.